Hey, hello, and welcome to the Feel Strong Fitness Podcast. My name is Justin McClintock, and this week we're again going live on Instagram for our podcast. Let's see who's around. As ever, if you have any topics, things, concerns, stuff you would especially like to talk about today or hear me talk about, we can turn this into a dialogue for sure. Just drop it in the chat. We'll take those as they come. Sometimes we push these to later episodes. Sometimes we turn this episode into the things you drop in the chat. I've had several people independently reach out over the past couple days on sort of kind of around what I think is one topic. So that's what I was leaning toward. But let's see what y'all have. All right. Thank you for all the submissions. Several of you submitted things that are kind of around the topic that I thought we were going to talk about today. So I think we're going to stick with it. And that topic is the function behind functional fitness, or taking a couple of steps back, really evaluating the quality of the why, the quality of the initial motivation to start and then stick with an exercise, fitness, lifestyle, health program. And these typically end up encompassing movement, breath work, nutrition, mindset, all of these things to varying degrees, of course, depending by need, depending on circumstance. I've had several check-ins in the past few days, face-to-face check-ins with clients, and several messages either from clients or people related to clients, all around this idea. And I think it's a really important one that I know we've spoke about before, but I think really deserves revisiting. And that is, the more compelling your why is, the more compelling and inspiring your motivation is, literally the more motivating it will be. The bigger it is, the easier it will be to stick with because it seems so important. If your why is relatively small, and that doesn't make it unimportant, but it makes it small, it is much easier to brush it aside because lots of things in our life take priority. What do I mean by this? I heard a bunch of stories in the past few days. They were really inspiring. Amongst others was someone who was at the beach and noticed a parent playing with their kids. I think they said they were around like a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old and playing and having a great time. Roughhousing, kids climbing up and down dad's back, throwing kids in the water, running after them on the beach, having a good old time. And they mentioned to me that that's one of the reasons they want their significant other to pursue fitness a little bit more. Not because they want their significant other to lose weight, not because they want an aesthetic change or something like that. Not even on the list, or certainly way down the list if it's on the list. I didn't ask. But they want their significant other to be able to show up like that when it's appropriate, when it's needed. And they think this is going to be in their future. This idea of, having a kid or two who are mobile, active, running around, being able to keep up with them and play at will and do the things they want to do and not sit back or rest or stay in the beach chair because they can't. Being able to say yes to these things is so important to people. I had another client reach out and tell me they're exploring all kinds of new hobbies and activities for several reasons. One of the reasons is being more social and meeting more people. So they're pursuing especially outdoor stuff, but they're doing some team field sports. I'm deliberately obfuscating a little bit, but some team field sports, some really grueling outdoor pursuits, both solo and group. All things that are really challenging. Honestly, all things that would be normal to train for or normal to be a single focus goal. I want to be able to climb this peak unaided on my own. I want to be able to hold my own in this, rec league sport. I want to be able to show up and hang at this group fitness activity. They're doing all of these things in a week, very active. And our program, the program I'm writing for them, is explicitly designed to support that. And what I mean by that is giving them the ability to say yes. We are not doing sport-specific training, right? They're doing group field sport activities. You know what they don't need? A bunch of cardio from me. You know what they don't need? A bunch of sprinting, cutting drills, plyometric stuff from me. They get all of that on the field. It's already built in. It's baked into what they're doing. What they need is support for both the strength as well as mobility, flexibility, agility, stability to be able to pursue all of these things and just keep saying yes. Over and over and over again, these are the kind of stories I hear. It is extremely rare that I talk with someone and they say, oh, I wish I had a little more shape in my shoulders. I wish my shoulders were a little bit bigger. Or, I wish, I wish my butt was a little bit bigger. As a primary motivator, I hear those things from people all the time down the line. But as a second most important motivator, it doesn't show up with the people I talk to. I know there's plenty of people out there that those are the primary motivators. I think my messaging and the way that I show up has successfully weeded a lot of those people out from applying and going through the consult process and things like that. If they end up in the consult process, I end up referring them to somebody else. Because as a primary motivator, I don't believe that that's compelling enough. It's not that it's not important to you. It's not that it's not a fine reason to exercise. I don't think it's compelling enough long term. And honestly, I don't think it's compelling enough for either of us. I get a lot of joy from what I do. When I'm working, either in person or remotely with people, it really fires me up. I enjoy what I do. And one of the things that keeps me going is the primary motivators for these people. I want to be able to be active. I want to be able to, I've decided I want to be a firefighter. I've decided I want to be able to show up for my kids as this, and model an active lifestyle and not only keep up, but be an example of what an active person should be, who moves with intention regularly and enjoys it. And that's just a normal part of their life. I want to be someone who can show up for their parents when they need something, as well as someone who can model for my parents what an active lifestyle can be. So I can easily have these discussions when we're talking about it, about why movement and strength and mobility and stability is not less important as you age. Spoiler. It's more important. And the more you can build it when you are younger, and by the way, you are younger right now than you will be tomorrow. This is a fine time to start. But building up that reserve of physical well-being and capability is really important, because when you need to go pull from it, you don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know. You don't know. But when you need to reach, especially in a sudden emergency situation, being able to do so with confidence is an absolute game changer. I also work with people all the time. And this came up on another check-in 4 or 5 days ago at time of recording, of people feeling like they're feeling kind of generally down. And I mean, energetically, mentally, spiritually, their self-talk sucks. Like everything is kind of receding. And they recognize that their physical capability not being where they want it to is a real sore point for that. And this is an important point, I think, especially for finding motivation and finding compelling reasons why. And I'm going to thread a needle a little bit on something I said earlier, and I think this is an important point. So I had a consult recently with someone who I am going to start working with soon in person, and the basic upshot was, I want to be more active. I want to lose some weight. Tiny red flags go up in my head, right? Not big red flags, but tiny red flags. Okay, what do you mean by that? And why losing weight? And we had a great discussion, and they shared an enormous amount with me about what their life had been like for about the last decade. And the journey they had gone through, really inspiring and impressive professional achievements, academic achievements, remarkable stuff. But some of that had come at a cost. They're carrying enormous amount of stress. Their load versus capacity is pretty much at its edge. And they have been living at that edge for a significant period of time. I'm sure this sounds familiar to some of you out there. And they hit kind of a breaking point. And that breaking point was, I don't think I can keep doing this, right? They're looking at sort of the rest of their life, especially the rest of their professional life, saying, well, I don't think I can keep doing this and keep feeling this way. And I've gone through enough, and it's become important enough. And honestly, it's hurt enough that now is the time to do something. Now I am ready to take big steps, to invest significantly. Yes, financially, but also my time and my energy and the opportunity cost of doing these things. It hurts enough and has gotten big enough that I've hit a breaking point where now the only thing I can do is take action. If coaches out there, well, everybody out there, if you feel this way, or if someone comes to you feeling this way, there can be an instinct to throw everything at them. And especially to my coaches who have a deep toolbox, when someone comes to you like this, I think there's an understandable urge to give them the breath work and the mindset work and the personal development work and the character work. And we're going to do a bunch of mobility, and we're going to do a bunch of strength, and we're going to do some cardiovascular stuff, and we're going to start tracking water, and we're going to start tracking steps, and we're going to look at protein, and we're going to look at sleep, and we're, whoa. Don't do it. This person, the person I just described to you, is almost at capacity, right? They felt at the edge of their breaking point for literally years. What you don't want to do is dump 50 new habits into their cup, watch it splash over. Maybe they can even do a bunch of them. Maybe they do all 15 for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then things start falling away and things aren't working the way you wanted it to. And they're finding some things really hard, and they find some things impossible, or they don't feel really good. And they start feeling bad because they're already failing at the thing that they took a big leap into. Because it hurt so much, they couldn't stay where they were anymore. And they found you. They did the work, they researched, they look at other people, they read reviews, they talked to folks, whatever they did, however they got there. And if this is you, however you got there, you gave them a well-meaning but impossible assignment, and they failed. They were always going to fail. It wasn't possible. And now they feel even worse. They feel worse than they did when they started because they tried so hard. They did all the things they thought they were supposed to do. It didn't work. And now they're wondering, at least part of them, if they're just incapable of changing. Maybe they can't get better. Maybe this is just the way they live now. If this is you, or if you are a coach who deals with people like this, it's impressive that you have all of that in your toolbox. And it's important. Take a step back. Look at all of those options I just described and more. Some of you out there have some things in mind that you would give them. Maybe we're doing deep core work or whatever it is. Pick one. If you could only give them one thing, what's it going to be? For this person, it is a physical exercise routine. That's where we're starting. And we're going to build the habit, probably only twice a week. And we're going to build, and we're going to build, and we're going to build. And while we build, we're going to talk. We're going to have conversations. We're going to keep track of how things are feeling. And then we're going to add one more thing in. Are we going to track stress levels or sleep or protein? Are we going to add in some breath work? Are we going to add in some mobility? Are we going to do some journaling? What are we going to do? Add in one thing. Sometimes, especially early on, things that you can quantify are sometimes easier, meaning tracking steps is pretty straightforward. Many people have a phone that just does it in their pocket, or even a wearable watch, things like that. Tracking steps I'm happy to have a long discussion about the pros and cons of tracking steps, but it's an easy thing to quantify, an easy thing to check in on, and a relatively easy thing to progress on, right? Well, where can we find in your day that we can add another 200 steps? Oh, great. We'll do that. Before your 10 a.m. meeting every day, you're going to close the computer at 9:55 and go do a lap. Oh, your office is on the third floor. Third floor is pretty cool. We're going to take the stairs instead of taking the elevator. Things like that. If you are tracking other things, stress, mindset, sleep quality, whatever you're tracking nutrition-wise, sometimes finding a way to quantify that is also makes it easier in the beginning setting these habits. So, for example, it's very normal for me to track someone's sleep and sleep quality, meaning, they'll get a notification saying, last night, how many hours did you sleep? And on a scale of 1 to 5, how was it? 1 being absolutely awful, 5 being I feel completely refreshed. And we track that for weeks. And after we track it for weeks, we can look back and say, hey, why is Tuesday always terrible? Something's going on. Is the Monday terrible? Is something happening Monday night that's hard? Is it something going into Tuesday with a sense of dread or hesitation or anticipation or whatever it is? Is there something there that is challenging? But that lets you dial in a little more. All of this to say, the more compelling the reason behind your why is, the more likely you are to stay with it. And reminding yourself of that on a regular basis can be really, really useful. I know people that have their mission statement or their why on a Post-it note over over a mirror in their bedroom or bathroom. I know people who have it, written all kinds of places. I know folks who have it on the background of their phones. I know folks who don't, as far as I know, don't have it written down anywhere, but we regularly talk about the why behind what they're doing. And, number one, be an active mom and a great model for my kids. Number two, be able to, run the Thanksgiving 10K. And maybe number three is have cool shoulders and an awesome looking butt. Totally. I'm on board. That's compelling. So when life gets hard and when sleep goes to hell and when stress is overwhelming and when the most logical thing in the world, because we're feeling a little overwhelmed, is to get rid of something. And you look at your priority list. If most of the time, for most of the people I work with, if that priority list is a great butt and the other things are, provide food and create meals for myself and my family, earn money so I can, keep the lights on, go do the work that's going to earn that money, all of these other things. If one of those line items is have a great butt, that's probably getting swept off the table. If one of those line items is be an incredible mom, it's a lot harder to sweep that off the table. It doesn't mean everyone has, perfect workouts and always hits, every single workout every single week. People miss days. People have to skip movements. People have to do all kinds of things. But if you have compelling why behind it, it's much easier to get through. And it's much easier to have those days where you're like, that was a real 6 or 7 out of 10 training day. The path to progress, the path to success, the real path to doing things you've never done before and being the kind of person who other people look at out of the corner of their eye, go, how do they even do that? They were born special. They were born different. They're just, I'm not capable of being like that. The path to becoming that person is paved in 6 and 7 out of 10 training days. It just is. You don't want to be there. You show up. It feels okay. You can't go as heavy as you'd like. You can't go as fast as you like. You get tired faster than you want to. You don't feel like it looks as good. It's kind of annoying. You're in a mood most of the time, and then you're done feeling like you didn't really accomplish much, and maybe you're not as good as you thought you were. That day is incredibly normal. It's not the average, hopefully, but it's very normal. It is common. People who make amazing progress, people who have truly compelling goals, people who are able to show up not just for themselves, but for their family and their community and their society, show up and do 6 out of 7 work all the time. And you build and you build and you build. And sometimes those blocks are smaller than other blocks, but you add and you add and you add. And that's how you build amazing. So take a minute. Why are you doing the things you're doing? If you're listening to this, you probably have some kind of exercise, workout protocol, lifestyle, health, nutrition, mindset, maybe all of it. Stuff that you're doing. Make sure you understand why you're doing it and be honest about it, right? Be honest about the reason you're doing it. And examining that sometimes may lead to changes. If you say, no, what I really care about is being really strong because I've always wanted to compete in powerlifting. And I've been telling myself for 15 years that I was going to do a powerlifting meet. And there's never been time, and there's never been time. And I feel like there's not going to be time. So I'm going to be selfish here and show up for myself because this is a goal I've had. And being able to knock out a long-term goal will allow me to show up as someone who accomplishes things that they said they were going to do, model that for other people, etc., etc. That's fine. If your goal is to squat 300 pounds, that may well be a compelling goal, but we need to dig into the why behind it. And if it's not a compelling goal, if it's just a number, I would strongly suggest closely examining where that goal came from, if you really mean it. If it's really important, it may well be. As long as your goal is deeply compelling and inspiring for you, then it's likely to work. It doesn't have to be compelling to me. If it's not compelling to me, we're unlikely to work together. That's a whole different conversation. But make sure it's compelling for you. And if it's not, take a look around. See what it is you really want. You will be happier, more energized, more excited, more focused, more complete, pursuing things with a big, giant, sexy goal behind it, regardless of how important that is to other people, regardless if that's a common or normal or popular goal. Understand your why, and everything becomes clearer and easier. Gang, thank you for everyone who showed up. Thank you for everyone who came through and joined and dropped comments and stuff while we were doing it. We are going to try to keep doing these live about once a week. Keep an eye out on Instagram at FeelStrongFit. That's where we will drop all the information, the time. Right now, generally, we're aiming for 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Mondays. That's always subject to change based on schedule, et cetera, et cetera. This has been a pleasure. Thank you for all your support. My name is Justin McClintock. Feel strong.
Thank you so much for listening to the Feel Strong Fitness Podcast. Please subscribe and leave a 5-star rating if you have the time. That makes a really big difference. If you have questions, you want details, DM us on Instagram at FeelStrongFit. There's more information on the website at feelstrong.me. We value effectiveness, individualization, and empathy. See what it's like to have an expert in the field really listen, hear what you need, and build you the perfect program to get you where you want to go. Today is the perfect time to get started. Reach out.